Makkot, Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, how Hashgacha's destiny really works. Shaya, lebekes, rachamim. So we see how experts expound on why various things happen in the world, whether it's in the area of politics or sociology, whether it's in the area of science and economics. There'll always be all sorts of reasons that are given as to why things happen, but in effect they're really explaining how things happen, not why things happen. There are various mechanisms that cause or appear to cause, but that's not the root cause. The root cause of everything is a system that is so much more complex than any single set of reasons that any expert gives based on their own discipline. There's a magnificent piece in War and Peace of Tolstoy's where, after describing this unbelievable tapestry of historic events before, during, and after the Napoleonic Wars in Russia and in France, it's just a global tapestry, and you see these massive armies moving and battling and fighting. You see the lives of individuals, of families, of nations, and as he gets towards the end, he starts probing the causes of history, what drives history. And he has a beautiful piece where he says, why does the apple fall off the tree? Is it because the stem has withered? Is it because the wind shook the apple? Is it because the sun dried the apple? There's so many different reasons. And he says, depending on what discipline you come from, you'll find a different reason as to why the apple fell. But in effect, the reasons for which the apple fell are so complex and so many that there's no way that a single human mind can really grasp it all. And we'll see this in understanding in our piece of Gemara today. But we start with the Pasuk, with the Ir Miklat. We're still busy on these sanctuary cities where a person who commits a homicide by mistake can flee. V'yashav ba ad mot hakohen hagadol, and he stays in that city. It's a kind of a house arrest. He's confined to that city until the reigning Kohen Gadol, the high priest of the time, dies. And then he can go. That high priest, that Kohen Gadol, asher mashach oto b'shemen hakodesh, who he anointed with the special oil with which a Kohen Gadol was anointed. There are three questions. The one question our Gemara will deal with: what's the connection between the Kohen Gadol and this particular individual who committed the unintentional homicide? But more fundamental even is the question of why is he given a sentence that is so randomly variable? Where do you find such a thing in any system of law? How long is your sentence? You've got to go to Ir Miklat for how long? Well, we don't really know. It depends on when the Kohen Gadol dies. When's the Kohen Gadol die? It might be tomorrow. It might be in 30 or 40 years' time. We don't know. How can you have a sentence? And is it fair? One person goes to the Ir Miklat a day before the death of the Kohen Gadol, and the next day somebody else goes to the Ir Miklat for the same kind of crime, and he stays there for decades. Why would that be? And the second one is the grammar. Asher mashach oto b'shemen hakodesh. The subject of that sentence is the perpetrator. And what does it say? Until the Kohen Gadol dies, that Kohen Gadol, asher mashach oto, that he anointed. He didn't anoint the Kohen Gadol. Why? He's the subject of the sentence. The Kohen Gadol was anointed, but not by him. So on the first question, this foreigner says, Kfar bi'er she'agalut hi ala shogeg. Golus, this going to the city of refuge is for mistake and for unintentional killing. Uve'yot minei hashgagot bilti shavot. And when it comes to shogeg, you can't compare one to the other because they're all subconscious, they're all unconscious, they're all unintentional. How much intention was there? We discussed that there's a spectrum going from careless to honest. From pshia to honest, and in the middle is mistaken. It's careless, you could have avoided it. Honest is there's no way you could have avoided it. And in the middle there are all these various different degrees. So how to measure the severity of a shogeg, of an unintentional transgression, is difficult for a human being. We can't. And therefore, natan legalut zman bilti shaveh b'chol hashogegim. So it's understandable that Hashem gives a different length of time for each shogeg. We don't make that decision. Hashem makes that decision. V'zeh b'mishpat hakel yitbarach hayodeh avad. This is the judgment of Hashem, who understands the whole system. He understands the whole world. He understands everything. And he decides how long this person is going to be in the city of refuge for. And that's why it's variable. There's an amazing Meshech Chochmah that deals with Asher Mashach Oto. The Meshech Chochmah says, V'chi hu moshcho, Did he anoint the Kohen Gadol? He didn't. What it really means is the Kohen Gadol who was anointed in his time, but not by him. Va'pirush. And the reason is, the Rebbeinu Shem here, the Torah reveals how Hashgacha works, how destiny works. How does the Rebbeinu Shem control the world? She'yitachen b'chek hanhagata asher b'shvil sibat ish prati yuamad ze lekohen gadol. Just imagine the scene for a moment. So, a Kohen Gadol dies. The question now is, who's going to be the next one? It's a little havdil elef havdolos, like one can imagine with the popes. Pope dies, it's now time for a new pope. Now the politicking starts. In fact, the politicking started years before the pope dies. So Lavdil the same with the Kohen Gadol. He's getting old, he's a little bit sick already, he's getting more ill. Now the vying starts. Who's going to be the next Kohen Gadol? And you've got different factions. You've got the Charedim have a Kohen Gadol, the Dati Leumi have got a Kohen Gadol, the left wing want a secular Kohen Gadol this time. All these different, and within each group they're the different ones vying for Kohen Gadol. Eventually it emerges that a Kohen Gadol is appointed, and now you get all the articles written. What's this person's background? How did he come to be Kohen Gadol? Why was he chosen as Kohen Gadol? And so it goes. And the real reason, says the Meshech Chochmah, is because the Kohen Gadol that was chosen is going to live exactly the period of time that Hashem wants another stranger who this Kohen Gadol has never heard of in his life, who is going to commit an unintentional murder, to go to the Ira Miklat and to be there for 14 years, 3 months and 22 days. And that's the day that this Kohen Gadol is destined to die. Therefore, he becomes the Kohen Gadol. We think what causes the event, the choice of a Kohen Gadol, or a president, or a prime minister, or a king or a queen. We have all these theories as to why it came to be. It might be something very, very simple. Tolstoy also shows, he says, you've got all these experts talking about why the Napoleon strategized in a particular way and why he gave a particular instruction that sent hundreds of thousands of people to their death. What was the bigger picture that he was considering? Where did it come from? He says, the fact is, he woke up one morning in a bad mood. He had a cold and he made a bad decision and everything came from that. It wasn't necessarily all that thought out. We think that everything is the result of things we understand. It isn't so. Sometimes there can be a seemingly insignificant person or event that is the real cause of something major happening, and we have no clue that that is so at all. That's why it says in the Torah, the Kohen Gadol, which this person who committed the unintentional murder, that he anointed the Kohen Gadol. Yes, because he was destined to commit the murder and therefore to have to go into Galut for a specific amount of time, which matched the lifespan of a particular Kohen. For that reason, Hashem decides that's the Kohen who's going to become the Kohen Gadol. It's such a humbling thought, isn't it? All the things we think we've accomplished, and we think we know how we've accomplished it, and it's our work, and it's our planning, and it's our thought and events. Sometimes it's not. There are reasons that we don't even understand why individuals are put in certain places, in certain times, and so on. But with this Sforno and the Meshech Chochmah, the question of our Gemara becomes much more powerful. The Mishnah says, "Lefichach imoteim shel kohanim mesapkot lahem bichya uksut kadei shelo yitzpalelu al bneihem sheyamutu." The mothers of the Kohanim Gedolim used to provide food packages and clothes for the people who were sentenced to time in the Ira Miklat. Why? So that they should appreciate the mothers of the Kohen Gadol, the mother of the Kohen Gadol, and daven that the Kohen Gadol lives a long time, because they're getting all these good food packages and they're getting these clothes and money they're being supplied with, and that's not a bad situation to be in. They don't even have to work. They're being provided for by the mothers of the Kohen, so they might daven that the Kohen Gadol will live for a long time. Says the Gemara, "Time de lo matzlu, ha matzlu maisi." The mothers provide food so that they should not pray that the Kohen Gadol dies. That implies that if they do pray that he dies, why would they do that? Because they want to get out. They want to go home. So they want the Kohen Gadol to die. So does that mean that if they pray that the Kohen Gadol dies, he might die? That their tefillot could be so powerful? And the question is so much more powerful, because we've just said this is all calculated by Hashem. This Kohen Gadol was put there because he's going to live a certain time span. He's going to live for another 14 years, 3 months, 2 days. That's how long he's going to live. That's why Hashem made him Kohen Gadol. Everything was worked out so that this individual should stay in the Ira Miklat for that length of time. Now the people in the Ira Miklat start davening that the Kohen Gadol should die earlier. Does Hashem ruin his whole scheme and respond to the prayers and take the life of the Kohen Gadol earlier? And V'aktiv k'tzipor lanud k'dror la'of ken kilulat chinam lo tavo, as Mishle says, a meaningless curse doesn't have any effect. So the Gemara answers, Omar ha'usabam b'pirkei Rava Shmieli, I learned in a shir of Ravas once, this old man said, Shaya lahem לבקש רחמים al doran v'lo bikshu. There is a problem. They did do something wrong. The fact that an unintentional murder took place on their watch means they didn't fulfill their responsibilities fully, because part of a Kohen Gadol's responsibility is to daven for the well-being of his generation, of the period of time in which he reigns. And clearly he didn't do that sufficiently because these things happen. So here we see the enormous power of tefillah. Firstly, that the fact that a bad thing happened that he wasn't even aware of, he didn't even know the person who did it, he might not even have known that it happened. But the fact that it happened on his watch when he should have been davening that such tragedies shouldn't happen, that should be in his tefillah every single day, that in my community during my time, while I'm a Kohen Gadol, there should be brocha, there should be atzlocha, there should be goodness, and no terrible tragedy should happen. And the fact that the tragedies happen is their responsibility partially. Why? Because they didn't do what they ought to have done. Had they davened, this would not have happened. But we just learned in the Meshech Chochmah that Hashem set the whole thing up in advance because he knew, he wanted this person, this was going to happen, that this particular individual was going to be responsible for an unintentional murder and was going to go to the Ira Miklat. And that's why this Kohen Gadol was put in that position, all planned from the beginning. And if the Kohen Gadol would have davened right in the beginning, that means the previous Kohen Gadol, this Kohen Gadol would have davened that such things shouldn't have happened. Would Hashem have said, okay, he's davened, that's very nice, let's cancel the plan? Seems in the Gemara, yes, Hashem would have done that. And we see on the other hand, now that the plan's intact, and the person's gone to the Ira Miklat, and he is destined to stay in the Ira Miklat for X number of time, and they daven that the Kohen Gadol should die earlier. So this is not even the Kohen Gadol davening. This is not the great tzaddik in Yerushalayim, the Kohen Gadol. This is an ordinary balabos who's sitting in the Ira Miklat. And he's davening that the Kohen Gadol should die earlier, and the mothers bring presents and gifts to him so that he shouldn't daven that way. But if he does daven that way, would the tefillah help? Could the tefillah work to undo Hashem's entire master plan? Says the Gemara, yes. שהיה לבקש רחמים על דורם ולא ביקשו. That is absolutely so. That is the power of tefillah. So despite what we learned in the Sforah and the Meshech Chochmah, the extent to which Hashgacha is the putting together of a system of events and cause and effects that go way beyond anything that the human being can possibly imagine, that involves hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of people. We can't even begin to understand it. One of the forces that cause events to happen or not to happen is the force of tefillah. And our ability to change history with tefillah is unquestioned. Our ability to cause history with tefillah is unquestioned. And the power, the Gemara brings the story, a man was eaten by a lion 3 parsot, that's about 12 kilometers from where Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was the Rov. And for 3 days, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi didn't meet Eliyahu Hanavi. I mean, that alone is fascinating, isn't it? That Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi used to talk to Eliyahu Hanavi every day. And for 3 days, he didn't have Eliyahu Hanavi wouldn't talk to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Why? Because 12 kilometers away, a lion ate a person. Why? It shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened in your area. 12 kilometers is the area of influence of a Talmid Chacham. The Tosfos says on Daf Hey in Sanhedrin that the din that a Talmud is not allowed to paskin a halacha in front of the Rebbe, in front means within 12 kilometers. That's his area of influence. That's his area. If that's his area of influence in psak, it's also his area of influence in tefillah. He has davening. What happens within 12 kilometers radius is all a reflection of his own energy, of who he is and how he davens and what kind of energy he projects. And so we see that this power, whether it's a Rov and a Talmid Chacham, that's why we'll say Yizkor on Shabbos. When we say Yizkor, one of the tefillahs of the community is for the well-being of the Rov. Why is the community davening for the Rov at the time of Yizkor? What's going on there? Yizkor, you're talking about people who've died. People don't die because the Rov is davening for them. It's the Rov's community. He feels responsible for his community. Every day he davens for his community. That's his achrayas, that's his responsibility. It's the tzibur davens, may the Rov be healthy, because we want his tefillot to be heard because of the responsibility. When a person has responsibility, the tefillot are even more powerful. When a person has achrayut and he davens for the person, like the Kohen Gadol has responsibility for his generation, his tefillot are incredibly powerful. And we see, therefore, both the sense that this Tolstoy says, what chokhmah in his words, and it's worth reading the entire War and Peace just to get to his development at the end of the ideas of Hashgacha, where he says there is nothing certain, nothing at all except the unimportance of everything I understand. Just isn't that's just something to reflect on for the rest of the day, if not longer. The unimportance of everything I understand, and the greatness of something incomprehensible, but all important. There's a force in this world I don't understand, and the economists don't understand, and the physicians don't understand, and the scientists don't understand, and the sociologists don't understand. Nobody understands. But that's the force that really makes the difference. That's the force that really causes things to happen. Can we influence that force? Yes, in our world of Torah, we can influence that force. We can influence that force with our tefillot, with the prayers that we, each one of us, provide, particularly for the areas for which we are responsible, for our families, for our businesses, for the people who depend on us, for our communities, for the people we lead, and certainly for Klal Yisrael and the world altogether. The power of tefillah to change and to shape history is beyond question.